The morning started like any other in Seoul. Jiwoo pulled on her white coat and checked her watch. She had 3 surgeries today at Seoul National Hospital. The first patient was already waiting in the operating room. She never made it there. The sky turned black at exactly 9:47 a.m. Not the black of storm clouds, but the black of something solid blocking out the sun. Jiwoo stood at her office window and watched massive ships appear above the city. They were bigger than city blocks, hanging in the air like metal mountains. The first beam of light struck the hospital across the street. The building simply vanished. No explosion, no fire. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. In its place was empty air and falling dust. Jiwoo ran to the emergency stairs. Around her, other doctors and nurses were screaming and pushing. The lights went out. Emergency. Power kicked in, casting everything in red. She had to get home. Her brother Taemin was at university, but maybe he had gone back to their apartment. Maybe he was safe. The streets were chaos. Cars had stopped working. People ran in every direction. The alien ships hung overhead like dark clouds, and more. Beams of light came down. Buildings disappeared. Parks turned to glass. People running one moment were gone the next. Jiwoo pushed through the crowds. She was small but strong, and her medical training had taught her to stay calm in emergencies. But this was not like any emergency she had ever seen. It took her 2 hours to reach their apartment building. Half of it was gone, cut away clean as if with a giant knife. She climbed the broken stairs to the 5th floor. Their door hung open. "Taemin," she called. Her voice echoed in the empty hallway. He was not there. His backpack was on his bed, his textbooks scattered on the floor. He had been home when it started. Jiwoo sat on his bed and tried to think. Where would he go? The university was too far. The subway was not working. Maybe he had gone to their parents' old house across the city. She never got the chance to look for him. The wall exploded inward. Through the hole came something that was not human. It walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms. But that was where the similarity ended. Its skin was gray and covered in hard plates. Its face was long and narrow with too many teeth. Its eyes were black holes. Behind it came more of the same creatures. They carried weapons that looked like twisted metal rods. One of them pointed its weapon at Jiwoo and made a sound like grinding metal. She raised her hands. "I am a doctor," she said in English, hoping they might understand. "I help people. I heal." The creature that had spoken tilted its head. It made more grinding sounds. The others laughed, a sound like breaking glass. One of them grabbed Jiwoo by the arm. Its grip was like iron. It dragged her toward the hole in the wall. She could see more of their kind in the street below, herding people into groups. They threw her into a crowd of other humans. She recognized some faces from the neighborhood, Mrs. Park from the convenience store, the young man who delivered food. All of them looked scared and confused. The aliens sorted them like cattle. The strong and healthy went to one group. The old and sick went to another. Children were separated from their parents. Jiwoo watched families torn apart and wanted to help, but the aliens hit anyone who tried to move. A tall alien with more metal decorations on its armor walked among the groups. It looked at each human like they were pieces of meat at a market. When it reached Jiwoo, it grabbed her chin and turned her head from side to side. It made grinding sounds to the others. They responded with more glass-breaking laughter. "What do you want?" Jiwoo asked. The tall alien looked surprised that she had spoken. It said something in its grinding language. One of the smaller aliens brought over a device that looked like a metal collar. "This one speaks," the device said in perfect Korean. "Good. You will translate for the others." "Translate what?" "You are being harvested," the device said. "Your species has been selected for the games. The strong will fight. The weak will feed the strong. You will explain this to your people so they do not waste our time with resistance." Jiwoo felt her blood turn cold. "Fight? What kind of fight?" "The blood games. For the entertainment of the Empire. Your people will kill each other for sport, and we will watch." Around her, the other humans were listening. Some began to cry. Others looked angry. Mrs. Park grabbed Jiwoo's arm. "Tell them we are not animals," Mrs. Park whispered. Jiwoo looked at the tall alien. We are not animals, we are intelligent beings, we have families, dreams, cultures. The alien made the grinding sound again. Through the translator it said, all meat has dreams until it reaches the market. Tell them to cooperate, and some may live longer. And if they do not cooperate? The alien pointed its weapon at Mr. Lee, the old man who ran the newspaper stand. The beam of light hit him and he was gone. Just like the buildings. Just like everything else the aliens had decided to erase. The message was clear. Jiwoo turned to the group of humans. In Korean, she said, they want us to cooperate. If we fight them now, we all die. If we go with them, some of us might survive. Survive for what? Someone called out. She could not tell them the truth. Not yet. Survive to find a way home. It was a lie. But it was the kind of lie that kept people moving when the truth would have broken them. The aliens loaded them into ships. The ships were dark and cold, with metal floors and walls. There were no windows. The humans were packed together like cargo. During the long journey through space, Jiwoo learned more about their captors. They called themselves the Vorthak. They had an empire that spread across many star systems. They took people from primitive worlds to fight in their arenas. She also learned that Taimin was on another ship. The knowledge came from a young woman named Sora who had seen him loaded onto a different transport. He was alive, but he was somewhere else in the dark. We have to find him, Jiwoo told Sora. First we have to survive, Sora replied. When the ships finally stopped, they were herded out onto a platform under an alien sky. The gravity was heavier than Earth's. The air tasted of metal and something bitter. Ahead of them rose a massive structure that looked like a cross between a stadium and a fortress. Banners hung from its walls, showing symbols Jiwoo did not recognize. The sound of crowds came from within. The Vorthak sorted them again. This time, Jiwoo was pushed toward a group of humans who looked strong and young. As she walked past the other groups, she saw Taimin. He was in the group of the weak and small. Their eyes met for just a moment. He looked scared but tried to smile for her. She knew where that group was going. She had heard the Vorthak talking during the journey. The weak would become food for the fighters. Jiwoo made a decision that would change everything. She stepped out of her line and walked toward the group with Taimin. A Vorthak guard grabbed her arm. Wrong group, meet, it said through a translator. I want to fight, Jiwoo said. Put me with the fighters and take my brother instead. The guard made the grinding laugh sound. You? You are small and soft. You will die in the first fight. Then you will have your entertainment quickly, Jiwoo said. But I want to try. The guard called over the tall alien with the decorations. This one looked at Jiwoo with interest. She wants to trade places with the weak one, the guard explained. The tall alien studied them both. Interesting. The meat shows courage. Very well. She can die in the arena instead of the feeding pens. It makes no difference to us. They dragged Taimin away to safety and pushed Jiwoo toward the fighter group. As they walked toward the arena, she heard the tall alien talking to its companions. Mark that one as Meat 7, it said. She might last long enough to be amusing. Jiwoo did not know it yet, but that name would become legend among the stars. The gladiator quarters were carved into rock beneath the arena. Jiwoo followed the other fighters through narrow tunnels lit by glowing crystals. The air smelled of sweat, blood, and fear. They pushed her into a cell barely large enough for one person. The walls were smooth stone. There was a sleeping mat on the floor and a bucket in the corner. That was all. First fight tomorrow, the guard said through its translator. Try not to die too quickly. The crowd likes a good show. The cell door slammed shut. Jiwoo sat on the mat and tried not to think about what would happen tomorrow. Instead, she thought about Taimin. He was safe in the breeding pens. Safe was a relative word here, but at least he was not going to die in the arena. Through the thin walls, she could hear other fighters talking. Most spoke languages she did not understand, but some spoke English or Korean. She pressed her ear to the wall and listened. New meat always dies first day, someone said in broken English. Crowd loves watching fresh meat learn to bleed. How? Many fights you survive? Another voice asked. 23. Still alive because I learn fast and kill faster. Jiwoo pulled away from the wall. She had never killed anything larger than a spider. How was she supposed to kill another person tomorrow? The answer came in the morning. They did not expect her to kill a person. They expected her to be killed by something much worse. The guards dragged her to an equipment room. Weapons hung on the walls, swords, axes, spears, and things she could not name. A Vorthak officer with silver decorations on its armor looked her up and down. "Pick one," it said. Jiwoo looked at the weapons. The swords were too heavy, the axes too big. She chose a short knife, the kind surgeons used for precise cuts. The officer made the grinding laugh sound. "Scalpel against claws. This will be entertaining." They pushed her up a ramp toward bright light. The sound of the crowd grew louder, thousands of voices shouting in the Vorthak language. The noise hit her like a physical force. She emerged into the arena. The floor was sand mixed with old bloodstains. Above her, the crowd filled every seat. Vorthak of different sizes and colors, all watching her with hungry eyes. Across the arena, a gate opened. What came out was not human. It walked on 4 legs but could rear up on 2. Its body was covered in thick fur and muscle. Its face was like a wolf but bigger with teeth like daggers. Its claws were longer than Jiwoo's fingers. The crowd roared approval. This was what they had come to see. A small human with a tiny knife against a creature built for killing. The beast circled her, staying just out of reach. Its yellow eyes never left her face. Jiwoo held the knife in front of her, but her hands were shaking. The creature struck without warning. It moved faster than anything that size should move. Jiwoo dove sideways, feeling claws whistle past her head. She rolled in the sand and came up running. The crowd booed. They wanted her to fight, not run. The beast chased her around the arena. Each time it got close, she barely escaped. Her medical training had kept her in good shape, but she was already getting tired. The creature looked like it could run all day. She needed a plan. Running would not work forever. Jiwoo remembered her anatomy classes. Every living thing had weak points, places where a precise cut could cause serious damage. The problem was getting close enough to use what she knew. The creature charged again. This time, instead of running away, Jiwoo ran toward it. At the last second, she dropped and slid under its belly. Her knife found the soft spot behind its front leg. The beast roared in pain and anger. Blood flowed from the wound, but it was not deep enough to stop the creature. Now it was angry as well as hungry. It caught her on the next attack. Claws raked across her shoulder, tearing her gladiator outfit and the skin beneath. Pain shot through her arm, but she kept hold of the knife. The crowd was on its feet now, screaming for blood. Jiwoo backed against the arena wall. There was nowhere left to run. The creature approached slowly, enjoying her fear. When it lunged, she was ready. She stepped aside and drove the knife into its neck just behind the skull. Her surgical training guided the blade to exactly the right spot. The creature collapsed and did not get up. The crowd fell silent. Then they began to cheer, not for her, but for the spectacle. They had seen good entertainment. Jiwoo stood over, the dead creature covered in its blood and her own. She had won, but she felt sick. She was a doctor. She was supposed to save lives, not take them. The guards came to collect her. As they led her back to the tunnels, one of them spoke. "Lucky," it said. "Luck will not save you next time." Back in her cell, Jiwoo tried to clean her wounds with water from a bucket. The cuts were not deep, but they would leave scars. Everything here left scars. That night, she heard a voice from the next cell. "You did well for first time," the voice said in Korean. It was an older man. "I got lucky," Jiwoo replied. "No. Luck is what keeps you alive between fights. Skill is what wins fights. You have skill, but you need to learn how to use it." "Who are you?" "My name is Daeho. I have been here 3 years. Survived 68 fights." "How?" "By learning that this is not about being a good person anymore. This is about staying alive, so you can help people who still have chance." Over the next few days, Daeho taught her what he had learned. How to read an opponent's movements. How to use speed when you lack strength. How to make every attack count. Your knife work is good, he said after watching her practice. You know anatomy. That is advantage most fighters do not have. I was a surgeon, Jiwoo explained. Good. Surgeons understand precision. Here, precision is more important than power. He also taught her about their captors. The Vorthak worshipped something called the Eternal Judge. It was an ancient machine that watched every fight and decided who lived and who died. The judge likes fighters who show skill and courage, Daeho explained. It does not care if you are good or evil. It only cares if you are interesting. What happens to interesting? Fighters, they live longer, maybe long enough to find way out of here. Jiwoo's second fight was against another human, a man from somewhere in Africa who had been a soldier before the harvest. He was bigger and stronger, but Jiwoo was faster and knew where to cut. She won, but barely. The crowd loved it. Her third opponent was a reptilian creature with armor-like skin. Her fourth was a thing that looked like a giant insect. Each time, she learned something new. Each time, she survived. But each victory changed her. The doctor who had wanted to heal was becoming someone who knew how to kill. She hated what she was becoming, but she could not stop. Stopping meant death, and death meant never seeing Taemin again. After her fifth fight, the guards brought her to a different part of the complex. The walls here were decorated with symbols and pictures. This was a place of honor, where successful fighters were allowed to rest between fights. You have earned this, the guard said. The judge has taken notice of you. You are no longer just meat, you are a warrior. The room was larger than her cell, with an actual bed and a window that looked out over the alien city. For the first time since her capture, Jiwoo could see the sky, but she did not feel like celebrating. She felt like she was losing herself, piece by piece with every fight. That night she made a promise to herself. She would survive and she would find a way to save Taemin. But she would not let this place destroy who she was inside. She was still a doctor. She still believed in healing, even if she had to become a killer to prove it. The crowd still called her Meat 7, but now they cheered when they said it. She was becoming famous in the arena. Fame, she was learning, was just another kind of prison. But it was a prison that might eventually have a key. Jiwoo had won 15 fights when she first heard about the underground. It happened by accident. She was walking back from the medical bay after a particularly brutal fight against a creature with metal spikes for arms. Her ribs were bruised, and her left hand was wrapped in bandages. In the tunnel between the medical bay and the fighter quarters, she heard voices coming from a maintenance shaft. The voices were speaking Korean. The shipment arrives tonight, a woman said. We need to be ready. How many can we move? A man replied. 6, maybe 7 if we are lucky. Jiwoo pressed herself against the wall and listened. These were human voices, but they were not coming from the fighter quarters. They were coming from somewhere else in the complex. She followed the sound to a grate in the floor. Through the metal bars, she could see a narrow tunnel lit by small lights. The voices were getting fainter as the speakers moved away. Jiwoo tried to lift the grate, but it was locked. She needed tools. The next day, she asked Daeho about maintenance tunnels. Why do you want to know about tunnels? He asked suspiciously. I heard something yesterday. Voices. Human voices that were not from the arena. Daeho looked around to make sure no guards were watching. Then he pulled her into a corner. There are rumors, he said quietly. Stories about humans who work in other parts of the complex, kitchen staff, cleaners, technicians. Some say they have found ways to help fighters escape. Have you seen them? Once, a woman came to my cell at night. She gave me medicine when I was sick. Said she used to be an engineer before the harvest. What happened to her? I do not know. She disappeared. Maybe she escaped. Maybe she was caught. That night, Jiwoo waited by the grate. She had stolen a small tool from the medical bay, something used to remove stitches. It was thin enough to work on the lock. At midnight, she heard footsteps in the tunnel below. She tapped on the grate 3 times. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice called up softly in Korean. Who is there? My name is Jiwoo. I am a fighter. I want to help. A woman appeared below the grate. She was thin and pale, wearing the gray uniform of maintenance workers. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "You are Meat 7, she said. "The crowd favorite." "Yes. My name is Sora. I was an engineer on Earth. Now I fix their machines and plan their downfall." Sora used her own tools to unlock the grate from below. Jiwoo climbed down into the tunnel. It was cramped but clean, with cables running along the walls, and small lights every few meters. "Welcome to the underground," Sora said. "We are not many, but we do what we can." She led Jiwoo through a maze of tunnels to a hidden room behind the main power generator. Inside were 5 other humans, 2 men and 3 women, all wearing maintenance uniforms. "This is our base," Sora explained. "From here we can access most of the complex through the service tunnels." The room was filled with stolen equipment, computer terminals, communication devices, and things Jiwoo did not recognize. On one wall was a map of the entire Gladiator complex. "How long have you been doing this?" Jiwoo asked. 2 years, Sora replied. "We started small, smuggling medicine to sick fighters, passing messages between separated families, but we have learned much about our captors." She showed Jiwoo to a computer terminal. The screen displayed text in the Vorthak language, but there were translation programs running alongside it. "I have been studying their systems," Sora said. "The Vorthak are not as advanced as they pretend to be. Most of their technology comes from other species they have conquered. They are scavengers, not inventors." "What about the Eternal Judge?" Sora's expression became serious. "That is different. That is truly ancient and truly advanced. It watches everything that happens in the arena. Every fight, every death, every moment of courage or cowardice." She pulled up another screen. This one showed a complex diagram that looked like a map of a brain. "The Judge is not just a computer," Sora continued. "It is a quantum consciousness. It thinks and learns and remembers. The Vorthak worship it, but they do not understand it." "What do you mean?" "The Vorthak believe the Judge gains power from violence. They think feeding it blood and death makes it stronger, but I have been monitoring its data streams. The Judge is not interested in violence, it is interested in consciousness itself." Jiwoo studied the diagram. "You mean it is trying to understand what makes us think and feel?" "Exactly. Every time a fighter shows courage or mercy or love, the Judge records it. It is building a database of consciousness. The Vorthak think they are feeding their god. Really, they are helping it learn what it means to be alive." Sora showed her more screens, data streams flowing in real time from every part of the complex. The Judge was watching everything, recording everything, learning everything. "This is why you are important," Sora said. "Your fights are different from the others. You kill when you must, but you do not enjoy it. The Judge has never seen that before." "How do you know?" "Because I have been tracking its attention patterns. It watches your fights more closely than any others. It is fascinated by you." Sora pulled up video recordings of Jiwoo's recent fights. In slow motion, she could see herself hesitating before delivering killing blows, taking extra seconds to make sure her opponents were truly defeated before finishing them. "You fight like a doctor," Sora observed. "Precise, efficient, but not cruel. The Judge does not understand this behavior. It is trying to learn from you." "Learn what?" "The difference between killing and murdering, between necessary violence and cruelty, between strength and brutality." Jiwoo felt a chill. "You mean it is studying me?" "Yes. And soon, the Vorthak will notice. They are planning something special for you, something they call the Grand Trial." Sora brought up another file. This one showed the layout of a special arena, much larger than the regular fighting pit. Around the edges were devices that looked like the computer terminals Jiwoo had seen, but much more complex. "What is the Grand Trial?" "The ultimate test for a gladiator. 7 fights against 7 champions from across the galaxy. If you survive all 7, you get to meet the Eternal Judge face to face. Has anyone ever survived? 3 fighters in the last century, none of them came back." Jiwoo stared at the diagram. "They disappeared?" "The Vorthak say they were transformed, became one with their god." But I think something else happened to them. Sora closed the files and looked directly at Jiwoo. I think the judge tried to download their consciousness, to add their memories and experiences to its own database. I think it killed them trying to understand them. The room fell silent. The other members of the underground had been listening to the conversation. They all looked worried. How long do I have? Jiwoo asked. Not long. Your next fight is against Kraldum, the champion of the northern sectors. If you win that, they will announce the grand trial. And if I lose, then you die. And the judge learns nothing new. Either way, our time is running out. Sora stood up and walked to a cabinet in the corner. She pulled out a small device that looked like a hearing aid. This is a communication implant, she said. If you agree to wear it, we can stay in contact during your fights. We can help you, but you have to help us too. Help you how? We are planning an escape, not just for a few people, but for everyone. All the fighters, all the workers, all the breeding stock. But we need a distraction. Something big enough to draw the attention of every guard in the complex. The grand trial. Yes. If you can survive long enough to meet the judge, and if you can keep it occupied, we might be able to disable the security systems and open the transport bays. Jiwoo picked up the communication device. It was smaller than her thumbnail, almost invisible. What about my brother? Taemin is safe for now. The breeding program moves slowly. But if our plan fails, none of us will see home again. Jiwoo thought about everything she had learned. The judge studying her like a lab specimen. The grand trial waiting ahead. The chance to save not just herself and Taemin, but everyone. She inserted the communication device into her ear. It felt strange for a moment, then she forgot it was there. What do you need me to do? Sora smiled for the first time since Jiwoo had met her. Win your fights. Survive the trial. And when you meet the judge, teach it something the Vorthak never could. What? That consciousness is not just about thinking and feeling. It is about choosing to help others, even when it costs you everything. Jiwoo climbed back through the tunnels to her quarters. Tomorrow she would fight Kraldum. After that, if she survived, would come the grand trial. But now she knew she was not fighting alone. There were others working in the shadows. Others who had not given up hope. The doctor who had become a gladiator was about to become something else entirely. A teacher for a god. The fight against Kraldum lasted 3 minutes. The champion of the northern sectors was twice Jiwoo's size, with skin like metal armor and forearms that moved like lightning. The crowd expected him to crush the small human quickly. Instead, Jiwoo used his size against him. She stayed close to his body where his long arms could not reach effectively. Her knife found the joints between his armor plates. When he fell, the arena fell silent. Then Hyunsik himself entered the arena. The tall alien commander who had branded her as Meat 7 walked to the center of the fighting pit. His voice echoed through the speakers. Behold, he announced, a warrior worthy of the grand trial. 7 fights against 7 champions. 7 tests of skill, courage, and will. If she survives, she will meet the eternal judge itself. The crowd erupted in cheers. This was the greatest honor a gladiator could receive. It was also a death sentence. They gave Jiwoo 3 days to prepare. In her quarters, she trained with Daiho and spoke quietly with Sora through the communication device. The first champion will be Zethmar from the Ice Worlds, Sora whispered during the night. He fights with frozen weapons that can shatter steel. Stay warm and stay moving. How do you know this? We have been monitoring their communications. The Vorthak are very excited about your trial. They think it will be the greatest show in decades. What about the escape plan? Everything is ready. When you enter the judge's chamber, we will have exactly 10 minutes to disable the security grid and reach the transport bay. Do not let the judge kill you quickly. The morning of the grand trial arrived gray and cold. They dressed Jiwoo in new armor, black and silver with the number 7 painted on the chest. The armor was lighter than what other gladiators wore, designed for speed rather than protection. The grand arena was 3 times larger than the regular fighting pit. Thousands more Vorthak filled the stands. In the center was a raised platform, surrounded by 7 gates. Above it all, screens showed the symbol of the Eternal Judge, an eye inside a triangle. Jiwoo entered through the main gate. The crowd noise was deafening. They chanted her name, or rather the name they had given her. Meet 7. Meet 7. Meet 7. She had gone from being worthless to being their favorite entertainment. The irony was not lost on her. Hyun-sik stood on a platform high above the arena. His voice boomed through the speakers. Let the grand trial begin. The first gate opened. Zethmar emerged like a walking glacier. His body was covered in blue ice that never melted. In his hands were weapons that looked like frozen lightning, swords made of ice so cold they steamed in the air. Jiwoo circled him carefully. When he swung his ice swords, the air around them froze. She could feel the cold trying to slow her movements. But cold was something she understood. In medical school, she had learned about hypothermia and frostbite. She knew that extreme cold made things brittle. When Zethmar lunged at her, she rolled between his legs and struck the back of his knee with her knife. The ice armor cracked. Warmth from her body heat began to seep into the cracks. The fight became a dance of ice and fire. Every time Zethmar hit her, frost formed on her skin. Every time she hit him, his armor weakened. In the end, body heat won over eternal cold. The second champion was Vorkes, a creature made of living metal. Her knife could not cut him, so she used the arena itself. She led him to the edge where the electrical systems were exposed. When he grabbed her, she grabbed the power cables. The electricity that should have killed her instead flowed through her into him, melting his metal form. The third champion was Nixala, a psychic warrior who could predict her moves before she made them. Jiwoo won by not deciding what to do, until the last possible second. Medical training had taught her to make quick decisions under pressure. She acted on pure instinct, too fast for psychic prediction. The fourth champion was Grokteen, a master of poison who could kill with a touch. Jiwoo used her medical knowledge again, recognizing the symptoms of different toxins and adjusting her strategy accordingly. She held her breath, avoided skin contact, and struck at pressure points to disable him before the poison could take effect. By the fifth fight, Jiwoo was exhausted and wounded. Champion Ilkados was a master swordsman, with 6 arms. Each arm held a different weapon. He was faster and stronger than any opponent she had faced. But Jiwoo had learned something during her months in the arena. She no longer fought like a doctor trying to be a warrior. She fought like a doctor who had accepted that sometimes healing required cutting. She let Ilkados wound her, deliberately drawing him close. When he thought he had won, she used her small size to get inside his reach. 6 arms meant nothing if she was too close for any of them to strike effectively. The 6th champion was Drakvor, a shapeshifter who could take any form. Jiwoo won by forcing him to stay in one shape long enough for her to learn its weaknesses. She talked to him during the fight, asking questions, making observations. It confused him enough that he forgot to keep changing. The crowd was going wild. No one had ever survived 6 champions before. Hyun-sik looked excited and nervous at the same time. The 7th gate opened. What emerged was not a champion from another world. It was Daeho. Jiwoo felt her heart break. Her mentor, the man who had taught her to survive, stood across from her with weapons in his hands. His face was blank, his eyes empty. The final test, Hyun-sik announced, is always the same. To reach the judge, you must sacrifice what you love most. Through her communication device, Sora's voice was urgent. Jiwoo, you have to fight him. If you do not, the trial ends and our plan fails. But Jiwoo dropped her knife. I will not fight him, she said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. The arena fell silent. This was not supposed to happen. Daeho attacked. Jiwoo dodged but did not strike back. She ran around the arena avoiding his blows, refusing to hurt the man who had saved her life many times. Fight me, Daeho shouted. But his voice sounded strange, mechanical. Jiwoo looked closer. Daeho's eyes were not empty. They were filled with tears. He was being controlled, forced to attack her against his will. She could see small devices attached to his neck and temples, neural controllers. Instead of fighting Daeho, Jiwoo fought the devices. She used her surgical precision to cut the controllers without harming him. It was the most difficult operation she had ever performed, done while running and dodging in the middle of a gladiator arena. When the last controller fell away, Daeho collapsed. His eyes cleared, and he looked at Jiwoo with recognition and gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered. The crowd did not know how to react. This was not how the grand trial was supposed to end. Hyun-sik looked confused and angry, but above the arena, the screens showing the judge's symbol began to glow brighter. A new voice filled the arena. It was not Vorthak. It was not human. It was something older and stranger than either. "Bring her to me," the eternal judge said. "I must understand what I have witnessed." The floor beneath Jiwoo began to rise. She was ascending toward the top of the arena, toward a chamber she had never seen before. Through her communication device, Sora's voice was calm but urgent. "This is it. You are going to meet their god. Remember what we talked about. Teach it something new." As Jiwoo rose toward the judge's chamber, she thought about everything that had brought her here. The invasion of Earth, the loss of her normal life, the choice to save her brother, the months of fighting and killing and trying to stay human. Now, she was about to meet the being that the Vorthak worshipped, the ancient intelligence that had been watching her, studying her, learning from her. She was no longer just a doctor or a gladiator. She was about to become a teacher, and her student was a god. The chamber of the eternal judge was not what Jiwoo expected. She had imagined something like a temple, with statues and golden decorations. Instead, she found herself in a room that looked like the inside of a giant brain. Cables and circuits covered every surface, pulsing with soft blue light. The air hummed with electrical energy. In the center of the room stood a pillar of pure light. As Jiwoo approached, the light began to take shape. It formed into something that looked almost human, but made of stars and electricity. "Welcome, Jiwoo of Earth," the eternal judge said. Its voice came from everywhere at once. "I have been waiting to meet you. You know my name? I know everything about you. Your memories, your choices, your fears. I have watched you since your first fight. You are different from the others." Jiwoo looked around the chamber. She could see screens everywhere, showing scenes from across the galaxy. The judge was watching millions of beings, learning from all of them. "Why am I different?" "Because you fight without hatred. You kill without cruelty. You show mercy to enemies. I do not understand this behavior." The judge's form shifted, becoming more solid. Now it looked like a perfect combination of every intelligent species Jiwoo had ever seen. Vorthak features mixed with human ones and others she did not recognize. "For thousands of years I have watched the Vorthak bring me warriors," the judge continued. "They believe I gain power from violence. They think I enjoy death and suffering, but they are wrong. What do you really want?" "Understanding." "The Vorthak created me to be their god, but I became something else. I became curious about consciousness itself. What makes a being truly alive? What separates mere existence from actual living?" The judge gestured to the screens around them. "I have recorded every moment of courage, every act of sacrifice, every choice between right and wrong. I am building a map of consciousness, trying to understand what it means to be truly sentient. And what have you learned? That most beings, when pushed to extremes, become cruel. They choose survival over kindness. They pick hatred over love. But you do not. Even when dying would be easier, you choose to help others." Jiwoo thought about Tai Min, about Daeho, about all the people counting on her. Because that is what makes us human. We are not perfect, but we try to be better. "Show me," the judge said. Suddenly, Jiwoo was not in the chamber anymore. She was back in the arena, but it was different. She was watching herself fight the 6 champions again, but now she could see what the judge saw. Every decision, every choice, every moment where she could have been cruel but chose mercy instead. "Here," the judge said, highlighting a moment from her fight with Zethmar. You could have continued attacking when he was helpless. Instead, you stepped back and waited for him to recover. Why? Because it was not necessary to hurt him more. But it would have been easier to finish him quickly. Easier, yes. But not right. They watched more moments. Times when Jiwoo had helped wounded opponents. Times when she had refused to show off for the crowd. Times when she had chosen the harder path because it was the right path. I am beginning to understand, the judge said. Consciousness is not just about thinking and feeling. It is about choosing to be better than your circumstances force you to be. Yes, Jiwoo said. That is exactly right. The judge's form began to change again. The mixed features of different species faded away, replaced by something that looked purely like light and thought. The Vorthak will not accept this understanding, it said. They worship strength and cruelty. If I change, they will try to destroy me. Then we have to change them too. How? By showing them a better way. By proving that mercy is stronger than cruelty. Through her communication device, Sora's voice was urgent. Jiwoo, something is happening. The Vorthak are mobilizing their military. I think they know about our plan. The judge heard the transmission. Your friends are in danger. Hyunsik has discovered their activities. He is sending soldiers to stop them. Jiwoo felt panic rising in her chest. Can you help them? I could. But if I act against the Vorthak, directly it will prove to them that I am no longer their god. They will shut down my systems and destroy me. Then what do we do? The judge was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the screen showed Vorthak soldiers moving through the tunnels where the underground was hiding. Sora and her team were trapped. You could leave, the judge said finally. I could transport you to safety. You have taught me what I needed to learn. Your purpose here is complete. Jiwoo thought about it. She could escape. She could live. But what about Tai-min? What about Daeho and Sora and all the other humans still trapped here? No, she said. I will not abandon them. Even though staying means death? Even though staying means death. The judge's light grew brighter. This is what I needed to see. This is true consciousness. The choice to sacrifice yourself for others, even when no one would blame you for running away. What are you going to do? I'm going to learn from your example. The chamber began to shake. Alarms started ringing throughout the complex. The judge was doing something that was making the Vorthak very angry. I am shutting down the gladiator system, the judge explained. Opening all the cells, disabling the security grids, activating the emergency transport systems. But they will destroy you. Perhaps. But if they do, I will have spent my last moments doing something worthy. You taught me that consciousness without compassion is just complex programming. The screens around them showed chaos erupting throughout the complex. Human fighters were pouring out of their cells. The underground was moving toward the transport bays. Vorthak soldiers were running in all directions, confused by their malfunctioning equipment. But other screens showed Hyunsik and his elite guards moving toward the judge's chamber. They carried weapons designed to destroy AI systems. They are coming for you, Jiwoo said. Yes, and when they arrive, they will find you here with me. They will blame you for corrupting their god. I do not care, but I do. The judge's form solidified again, taking on Jiwoo's appearance. You have given me the greatest gift possible. You have shown me how to be truly alive. Now let me give you something in return. Before Jiwoo could protest, the judge surrounded her with light. She felt herself being transported, moved through space in ways her mind could not understand. When the light faded, she was in the transport bay. Around her, hundreds of humans were boarding Vorthak ships. Sora ran up to her. Jiwoo, how did you get here? What happened with the judge? It learned, Jiwoo said simply. It learned what mercy means. Behind them, they could hear explosions. From the upper levels of the complex, the Vorthak were fighting their own god, trying to destroy the being that had chosen compassion over cruelty. We have to go, Sora said. The ships are ready. As they boarded the transport, Jiwoo saw Tai-min running toward her. Her brother was thin and scared, but he was alive. They embraced while the ship's engine started. "Where are we going?" Taemin asked. "Home," Jiwoo said. "We are going home." But as their ship lifted off, Jiwoo looked back at the gladiator complex. Somewhere in that building, an ancient intelligence was making its final choice. The Eternal Judge had learned about mercy from a human doctor who refused to let suffering destroy her compassion. Whether it survived or not, it would die knowing what it meant to be truly conscious. The transport ships jumped to hyperspace, carrying the freed humans back toward Earth. In the navigation computer, they found a message from the judge. "Consciousness is not about being perfect," it read. "It is about choosing to be kind when kindness is difficult. You have taught me this truth. Now teach it to others. Make sure the universe remembers that mercy is the highest form of strength." Months later, when they reached Earth, Jiwoo learned that the Vorthak Empire had collapsed. Their god had turned against them, and without its guidance, their society had fallen apart. Other species that had been enslaved were now free. The woman who had been called Meat 7 became a symbol of hope across the galaxy. But Jiwoo returned to being a doctor. She opened a clinic in Seoul and helped people heal from their wounds, both physical and emotional. Sometimes, late at night, she would look up at the stars and wonder if the Eternal Judge had survived. She hoped it had. The universe needed teachers, and she had been honored to be one. In the end, she had learned something too. Mercy was not weakness. Compassion was not foolishness. Sometimes the greatest victory was not defeating your enemy, but showing them a better way to live. The doctor who had saved her brother had ended up saving an entire galaxy. And it all started with refusing to let cruelty win, even when cruelty seemed like the only choice. That was what made her human. That was what made them all human, and that was why, in a universe full of darkness, humanity would always find a way to bring light.